Israel has been attempting to impose an illegal no-go area 6 miles off Gaza's coast through employment of lethal force against unarmed fishing boats. However, and this is not unusual, today's attack happened within the so-called permitted 6-mile area. The ISM regards the project of accompanying unarmed Palestinian fishermen as a long-term commitment. Some of the human rights observers currently undertaking this work are long-term volunteers who will be in Gaza for the indefinite future. More long-term volunteers are expected to bolster their number within the next few weeks. Vittorio Arrigoni, what is terrorism? September 17, 2008. What is terrorism? For a Russian citizen, terrorism is a kamikaze from Chechnya who blows himself up in a Moscow theater. For a Grozny citizen, terrorism is Russian military that razed to the ground his town. For an American soldier based in Afghanistan, terrorism is the mujahideen exploding a car bomb in front of an American army base. For Afghan people living at the border with Pakistan, terrorism is the NATO bomb dropping from 10,000 meters distance on a marriage party, tearing to shreds dozens of civilians. For a European tourist spending his holidays in the Sharm el-Sheikh American army base, terrorism is an act of violence and bombing against a holiday village. For an Egyptian living in a dusty village in the desert just a few kilometers from that artificial paradise, terrorism is a government funding this dictatorial power with thousands of euros coming from his tourist business, while his sons are dying of starvation. As we can easily understand, it's quite complicated to find a clear and unequivocal definition of terrorism, given that the question itself is so controversial. The answer strictly depends from what side we are observing the bloodshed, and in which side we are counting victims among friends and relatives. A few days ago 9/11 victims were sadly commemorated with a day of remembrance and mourning for the whole of humanity, not only for New York citizens, or for Chileans looking back on thousands of people dead and disappeared after the Pinochet coup. But I'm wondering how many 9/11s are taking place every day around the world, and every day here in Gaza where 1.5 million innocent people are dying slowly, cut off into the biggest open prison ever built in the world. In the video, which I'm kindly asking you to spread, we can see a tangible example of terrorism showing every day off the Gazan coasts. It is a clear and definitive terrorism that doesn't admit to objections or uncertainties about its definition. It is made in Israel terrorism. These are fishermen who often go further offshore, where the sea is more generous for fishing. A few days ago, they paid a high price. On Monday the 10th of September, at about 5 p.m., at a distance of 6 miles from the Gazan coasts, in Palestinian waters, an Israeli military gunboat deliberately rammed at high speed one of the fishing boats that day without internationals on board. The impact was devastating for the fragile Palestinian fishing boat. The Israeli military gunboat ran into one side of the fishing boat, literally passing over it, and then going on over, and sailing on the opposite side. Marks from the Israeli engine turbines are perfectly visible on the fishing boat's bow. Luckily the boat was fishing at that time, and it was, therefore, steady and buoyant in water, otherwise it would have tipped over with all the crew, which would have certainly died. Even more luckily, all members of the crew were astern cooking the meal that would have interrupted the Ramadan fast. At about 6 p.m. unluckily, damages for the owner of the boat amount to $50,000, maybe more. Fixing them in a short time will be impossible, since in Gaza under siege, it is not possible to find all the necessary materials. The only wounded person for this crazy terrorist attack, according to some military sources in Tel Aviv, was an Israeli soldier, since that suicidal action seriously compromised also the Israeli crew's lives. Palestinian fishermen try every day to go offshore and do their job to survive, but they are always victims of Israeli attacks, which, against every international agreement and all human rights, as a general punishment, force them in a fishing area, limited at 6 miles from the coast, even though attacks often happen at just 3 miles offshore. Our presence as internationals, equipped with video cameras, work as a deterrent toward these daily crimes and Israeli terrorism. A boat captain told me that he was contacted by radio from an Israeli warship and threatened in Hebrew, "When the internationals will leave Gaza, our revenge will be dreadful." It's therefore a vital need for these innocent people that a group of internationals are always present here in Gaza. I invite all European and American citizens to come here and actively participate in the defense of human rights, joining all of us ISM activists against every crime and Israeli terrorism, to be human. Stay human. Vic from Gaza, Vittorio Aragoni. See Vittorio's video of a Palestinian boat damaged by Israeli naval forces at uk.youtube.com weblink. Chapter 14. Marooned in Gaza, Life in the World's Largest Prison. By Lauren Booth.